Assalamualaikum and good morning. So today we will continue with topic number 2. Okay, so topic number 1, quite lengthy in terms of content. Spend almost 3 weeks, I think, on topic number 1 alone. Okay. So for this week, we will start with topic number 2. So topic number 2 is about capital investment decisions, as I mentioned last week as well. Um, um, the topic will revolve around capital budgeting. It's actually about capital budgeting. Remember, in financial management, when we learn about capital budgeting, we have to calculate few techniques, based on few techniques, before you decide whether to invest or not that particular capital investment. So this will be the extension of that, whereby we will look into the details, how to derive the inflows and outflows. Right. So for this capital investment decisions topic, okay, even though at the end we will calculate the same thing, which is NPV or internal rate of returns, but how you want to derive the inflows and outflows by ourselves. Okay, if you remember in the capital budgeting last time in FM, financial management, all information is given in the questions. They will give you two sets of, for example, two sets of projects or even assets, right? With different inflows and also the initial outlay, the cost of that particular project or cost of that particular assets, and then you decide which one is the best in terms of payback period, in terms of net present value, and so on. Okay, but today, or for this topic, we will look into the cash flows, how to identify the potential cash flow. Remember, this is all estimation, this is all projections. It's not historical data, it is based on projections. Meaning before we invest, we need to analyze first the potential returns of this particular investment. And at the end of the day, we will decide whether it is good move to proceed with the investment or we have to look elsewhere. Meaning we cancel the investment and try to look for another options. So the key concept and skill that you will learn throughout the topic would be understanding on determining the relevant cash flows, okay, because we have plenty of cash flows, but not necessarily all cash flows will be relevant in our calculations because some cash flows might not be relevant. Yeah, we'll discuss with you later in terms of which one is considered relevant, okay, and which one is considered not relevant in our calculations, right? Understanding the various methods on computing OCF, the operating cash flow, later on, kita can simplify it by using the terms OCF, operating cash flows. Okay, how to set the bid price, okay, this one, see whether we go through this or not, and how to evaluate the equivalent annual cost, EAC, right? So these two, I'll see later whether we go through or not, because the first two ni pun will take some time. Okay, if I see if it's not really relevant, I will skip these two parts. Okay, but for the first two parts, for sure we will go through. So this is what you will see, okay, throughout topic number 2. First look of what is project cash flows, what is incremental cash flows, okay, incremental cash flows. The concept of pro forma financial statements. Remember, this is projections, yeah. So all will be on pro forma basis and projection basis. And OCF I mentioned earlier, and obviously we have multiple scenarios with regards to cash flow analysis. Okay, you will see in terms of we want to project expansion, it can be assets. So, like expansion, replacement of assets. Maybe there's a lot of cases that we go through. So first things first, asking the right question. You should always ask yourself, when we talk about cash flow, whether the cash flow that we are talking about occurs only if we accept the project. Because if it's not the case, we will not put that cash flow inside our calculation. Because remember, when we talk about capital investment decision or capital budgeting, we want to assume that the transactions or the inflows and outflows of money comes because of that particular project only. So meaning the other reasons apart from that project will not be included in our calculation. So meaning we're talking about existing company. So this existing company, obviously they have their own assets, existing assets, which already generate returns. That's number one. And on top of that, they have existing staff that they already have to pay the expenses of salaries, for example. So for those kind of expenditures, okay, the existing ones will not be part of the calculation because of this question. Will this cash flow occur only if you accept, right? So if not, like the one I gave earlier, meaning the existing costs and existing income, even we don't have this project, it already occurs, so it will generate income. So therefore, it will not be part. So the one that we will include in our calculation is just this part. The cash flow that will occur just if we accept that only. Okay, so if the answer is yes, you should include this because it is incremental. So this is the term that we use, incremental. If the answer is no, it should not be included because it will occur anyway, just like I mentioned, or just like the example I gave earlier. The existing stuff. With a new project or not, you still have to pay them because they are already here. They are part of the company, so it will occur anyway. Okay, so it should not be included in the calculation, in the analysis. But if it's new, if we have a new project, we have to hire new staff, for example. Then yes, the new staff, cost will be part of our analysis. Okay, so if the answer is part of it, then we will just include the part that occurs because of the project. Okay. So, like I said, the keyword here or the summary of this, we just include cash flows. Okay. When I say cash flow, it can be inflow and outflow as well. Inflow and outflow, not necessarily income. It can be outflow as well, right? So anything nothing to do with the project will not include in the analysis. So these are among the common cash flows that we have in business. Okay, first is the sunk costs. Okay, sunk costs that have accrued in the past. Okay, that's the first one. Okay, when you see the keyword the past, you know already whether it's incremental or not. Okay, number two, we go through one by one later. I just want to summarize the things that we have here. Number two is opportunity costs, cost of loss options. So meaning, if you remember cost opportunity cost, meaning if you take one option, you miss the other options. Okay, let's say you have two opportunities or you have two options to choose from. Okay, either A or B. So if you choose A, you have to reject B, and vice versa. If you accept A, you accept B, you reject A. Okay, so if you accept project A, for example, so project B will be the opportunity cost that you pass. Okay, so whether it will be included or not, we'll see afterwards. And then we have side effects. Okay, side effects mean benefits or costs to other projects. Okay, one simple example for side effects means when you launch a new product, okay, the old products will be affected by the sales. Okay, because the new products have better, maybe better packaging, better, better offerings in terms of the benefits to the users. So the old products will have less sales, for example. So that's the negative or even positive side effect. Itu negative lah, the one I mentioned earlier. So kalau positive, maybe you come up with a new product that support the sales of the old products as well. Okay, so that's also can be benefit. So that's side effects. Sometimes we call them as externality. Externality. Okay, externality. Number 4, changes in net working capital. Okay, or properly in short, we call them network, NWC. As you know, when we talk about net working capital, this involves current assets minus current liability. Okay, so when we talk about net, so the difference between the two, the difference between current assets and current liabilities. And both are short-term costs. Okay, and then we have financing costs, includes interest and dividend. Obviously, government tax. So these are all cash flows. Some of them might be inflows, some of them you can see here mostly outflows. Okay, whereby you have to pay something like tax, interest, dividend. All here are costs. Anyway, let's look one by one whether it's incremental ataupun tak. When I said incremental, it means it will be included in the analysis. Okay, kalau dia non-incremental, it means we will ignore that cost in the analysis. So first is sunk cost. Remember, sunk cost is cost accrued in the past. So sunk cost is past cost and irreversible. You cannot reverse it. You already spent on it, and since it cannot be affected by the decision whether to accept or reject the project, so it should be ignored. Okay, so sunk cost is non-incremental. Okay. The question provides you with a cost. Okay, in the question they specify, okay, the company already incur. Maybe they don't use the term sunk cost. They will say, okay, like this one, you plan to produce ice creams using facility that you bought at 50,000 last year. So this facility, 50,000, was purchased before even the projects or the production of ice cream is in plan. Okay, because it was purchased last year. So therefore, this 50,000 will not be part of your analysis because this is already accrued in the past. Okay, so should this 50,000 cost from previous year be included? So the straight answer is no, because this is the sunk cost. Okay, so just remember, number 1, sunk cost accrued in the past will not be part of your analysis under our capital investment decisions. This is number 1. Okay, number 1. Number 2, opportunity cost. Like I said, cost of missing the other options. You accept one project, for example, you have to forgo the other project. So the short answer, cost is relevant. So meaning yes. Okay, by accepting one project, you have to forgo any possible returns from a cash flow, which can be seen as opportunity cost. That will be charged to the project. You have to take into consideration the project and the cost in the project. Okay, so the relevant cash flow is the annual after-tax opportunity cost. After-tax opportunity cost, whereby you have to take the cost together with the potential tax rate. The difference between you have to minus the tax lah, the calculations. Any example lah, how to calculate the after-tax opportunity cost. Okay, another example of opportunity cost, maybe you have let's say you have a building. Building is too much. You have one shop lot, and you are thinking of extending or expanding your operations. So you want to use that as part of your new projects. Even though it is existing facility, you already have that shop lots, but you miss the opportunity to rent it out. So if you have a shop lot, you can rent it to other companies maybe. So instead of renting out, you use that shop lots for your own usage of a new project. So that is opportunity cost, because if you agree to use that as your part of your um, operations, you miss opportunity of collecting rentals. Okay, so that is opportunity cost. Okay, that is opportunity. So obviously the potential returns of that rental will be relevant to you. So you can letak that lah in your analysis. So that's number two. Okay, so opportunity cost. Number three, the side effects. This is side effects, side effects, or like I said, externality. So the side effects of taking on projects. Okay, again, from the name itself, it shows us the effects because we take the projects. Obviously, will affect our analysis. Okay, either positively or negatively. So, example here they give you. If the ice cream production will decrease due to the sales of new products, for example, the company of existing produce ice cream, and then they produce a new line of product, which is, for example, yogurt. Okay, and because of this new product line, yogurt, the ice cream production decrease. Okay, so this is a negative side. So obviously this will be included. Yes, it will affect the project and therefore will be part of our cost. It will be a cost to this project. Okay, decreased cash flow due to other lines will be a cost. Okay, your income decrease. So obviously you will be part of our calculations. Together, if it's positive as well, can be positive. So for example, they produce a new product that complements the existing ones. Okay, so it will be part of the project, which is relevant to the cost. Okay, it can be positive, like I said, or it can be negative. So kalau positive, usually it complements lah. So they produce new products and can be used together with the old products. But kalau they substitute, macam yogurt dengan ice cream tadi, it's more on the substitutes lah. But both again will be part of our cash flows. Okay, that's number three. Number four, net working capital. Okay, net working capital is very important. And like I said, changes in the current assets minus the changes in current liabilities. And as part of capital budgeting process, it will be part. Okay, you have to bear this net working capital during the initial projects, because we need this as part of our initial investment. And therefore, yes, this is incremental. Okay, net working capital is incremental as well. Okay. Financing costs, we have two parts, financing costs and taxes kat sini. So financing costs, if you remember, it includes interest and dividend. Then and tax is government tax lah. So for financing costs, it will not be included. So this is non-incremental. Okay, for financing costs, it will be considered as non-incremental, meaning it will not be included in our calculations. Whereas taxes, we because the cash flows, because of the depreciation, it's all after tax basis. So therefore, taxes will be affected. Okay, we have to consider cash flow after tax basis. So therefore, all tax somehow will be part of our calculations. Okay, because we need to calculate the after tax basis. Okay, so that's all the costs relevant, or some may not be relevant, the common ones. Okay, what can we conclude here? Some costs which is not relevant. Opportunity costs, yes. Side effects, yes. Changes, yes. Financing costs, no. Taxes, yes. Okay, so 2 out of 6 here will not be relevant into our calculation. So you need to identify correctly which part will be considered and which part is not considered. Okay, so let's try to identify. case on this example. Okay, an expenditure of 1.2 million on equipment, okay, that has not been made. Okay, this is not being made, yeah, and will only be made if the project is accepted. So is this incremental or not incremental? Okay, so number one tadi apa? Yeah, so number one is, yes, it is incremental. Okay, because it's very clear because this 1.2 million has not been made, number one. And specifically, they say this only will be made only if the project is accepted. So if it's rejected, the cost will not occur. So therefore, it is incremental. Number two, cost of research and development, R&D, amounting 200,000 are taken in connection with the product, but happened for the past 4 years. Not implemented, incremental. This is non-incremental. Okay, not incremental. That's correct. So it's non-incremental. Dividends payment by the company, number three. Non-incremental. Why non-incremental? Because dividend, remember, financing costs, interest, and dividends is not part of our analysis, which is considered as non-incremental. Number four, the resale value of machinery at the end of project's life. The resale value is actually incremental. Okay, in fact, in the question, most of the question will give us our resale value, or sometimes we call them as sale value. I totally forget about the name. Later, I'll share with you the terms that they use when we talk about resale value. Um, Never mind later. Okay, number five. Salary of the employee who will only be employed on if the project is accepted. So this is very straightforward. This is incremental. This is not on the existing employee, but this is on the new employee who will be employed if the project is accepted. So similar like number one, it is incremental. Number six, land of the firm owns that will be used for the project, but otherwise will be sold for 900,000. This is just what I mentioned earlier, but the last one I gave example in terms of rental, but this is if they want to sell it for 900,000. So again, this is incremental. Okay, so just beware the question, they will give you a lot of information. So meaning some information, you have to use it because it is incremental, but maybe there will be some information you have to ignore because it is non-incremental, right? So just remember that the categories that we have earlier, the six uh, categories, including sunk cost, opportunity cost, and whatnot, and try to differentiate which is incremental and which is not incremental. So capital budgeting relies heavily on pro forma. Okay, remember pro forma, when we talk about pro forma, it is based on projection. Okay, or estimation. Something yet to happen, okay, but we just project or we do some estimations, especially the income statements. If you remember the income statement, the flow we have from revenues or sales down until the income. Okay, the whole things, right? You may have to calculate. So to compute cash flows, Okay, besides using the actual income statement, we may have to use some formulas. Okay, so the most important parts in our cash flows is known as operating cash flow or OCF. Okay. So here you can see multiple way how to calculate the OCF. Okay. First is by having or by using earning before interest and taxes minus with the tax. Okay, why we don't use minus interest? Remember, because interest is non-incremental, so we take interest together, but with minus tax, and we add to the depreciation. This is from top to bottom, top down. Right, from earning before interest and tax on the top, and then we go downwards. Okay, but another method or another way to calculate OCF is by looking from bottom to up. Okay, bottom up. Tadi top down, this is bottom up. So we are looking from net income, okay, net income, and we add depreciation again. So depreciation is really important in our calculation as well. Okay, together with the resale value, depreciation also will be part of our calculation, right? And this is OCF. Okay, OCF. And to calculate the total cash flows, okay, we will take the net capital spending. So this is the initial outlay, initial cost. And we add with OCF from above. And we have to minus changes in net capital, if any. Right. So this is some of the formulas that you may need to use later on. This is just a quick uh, explanation about the calculations, but I will explain to you how to apply this later. Here, case number 1. For illustration, yeah. Suppose we think we can sell 50,000 cans of engine oil per year. So this is our our sales of 50,000 cans per year with a price of $4 per can. Okay, so meaning if you want to calculate our sales, it will be 50,000 multiplied with $4. That's about 100,000. Okay, be our income based on our selling, based on our sales for 50,000 cans. It costs us 250 per can to make. So this is our cost of goods sold, 250 per can. And the new products such as this one typically has only a 3-year life. Okay, this is our life or business life or the product life, 3 years. And we have the company set 20% returns. Okay, and then they have a fixed cost. Okay, remember we have the variable cost, which is your ES, 250 per can. So the more you sell, the higher the cost. Whereas we have another fixed cost, which is relates to the rental and productions. And this will be 12,000 per year. So this will be fixed. It will not reflect or it will not change according to the sales. So if you sell 50,000, the cost is 12,000. If you sell 80,000, it will be 12,000 as well. If you sell 10,000, it will be 12,000 as well because this is a fixed cost. Okay, whereas COGS, cost of goods sold, this is variable cost. Okay, so the higher the can you sell, obviously the cost will be higher as well. And on top of that, you need to invest of 90,000 in the manufacturing equipment. And remember, this 90,000 has 3-year life cycle. So assume this 90,000 will be 100% depreciated. I hope you've learned about depreciation because we have multiple techniques with regards to depreciation. We have straight line basis, we have MACRS, and so on. Okay, but for this question, they asked us to assume straight line basis. So straight line basis meaning depreciation would be 90,000 divide by 3 years straight away. So you know the annual depreciation will be 30,000 every year until it will be depreciated to zero. And the project also required 20,000 investment in working capital, and the tax rate is 34%. So if you want to, you know, to construct all the information into income statement, it will be something like this, right? So the sales 50,000 for ringgit per unit will be 200,000. Okay, 5,000 just what I wrote here. So 250 cost of goods sold times 50,000 can, it will give us about 125,000. And once we minus the variable cost, the cost of goods sold, it will be gross profit of 75,000. Okay, 75,000 minus the fixed cost of 12,000, together with depreciation of 30,000, we get the EBIT of 33,000. Okay, so this is our important point in our OCF. In our OCF, EBIT is the important point. Okay, bear with me 1 second. Because you see here, we have EBIT, one of the point, EBIT. Then we have minus tax and plus back the depreciation. So we minus tax. Okay, we minus tax, which is 30%, 34% of 33,000, which equates to 11,220. So with that, we get an income of 21,780. So this is another point. So if you go back to OCF earlier, we have two options, which is EBIT minus tax plus depreciation. Okay, so EBIT minus tax depreciation is actually to use the income. That's why the alternative way is the income plus depreciation. Okay, because EBIT minus tax is basically the income. So to find OCF for this project, it would be 21,780 plus with 3,000 depreciation. So it will give us 51,780. That will be our operating cash flows. Okay, operating cash flows of 51,780. Okay. So for finding the total cash flow, find the total cash flow, it is net capital spending plus OCF minus with the changes. So to find total capital spending, total cash flow. So the total spending will be 90,000 because that's the cost. 90,000. We add with OCF 51,780, and we minus with the LK capital of 20,000. So it will be 100, 780. That will be our total cash flow. Okay, so that's basic information that we can calculate based on this information. So just bear in mind, this is not analysis yet. This is not the actual analysis that we will do, but this is just to determine the operating cash flows and total cash flows if necessary. So to put it in perspective, the project has 3 years life. Okay, 3 years life. And this is really not the one that we want to see is actually this one. Okay, if you remember in capital budgeting, right? Capital budgeting, we have the this one kita panggil the initial outlay, the one occurred or accrued in the beginning. Okay, and the year 1, 2, and 3 would be, or the year 1 and year 2 is basically the operating cycles. And the third year, okay, we call them as a terminal. So these two would be our operating cash flow cycle. Okay, and the third year will be our terminal or our closing year because we have a 3-year project in this case. Okay, year 0 will be the initial outlay period, whereby this is the cost accrued. Year 1 and year 2, together with year 3, actually, we will receive the income. Yes. And at terminal, we will conclude the project and recover back anything. It can be in the form of resale value, or it can be in the form of receiving back our net working capital. Because net working capital will accrue in year 0, and we will recover this at terminal cash flow. So if you want to put in the perspective the project cash flow year-on-year basis, okay, year-on-year basis, we know that the cost of the machine is 90,000, and the crew 20,000 as part of our costs. Then that would be 20,000. So a total of 110,000 will be our initial outlay. Okay, initial outlay, and our OCF just now we've calculated 51,780. Okay, we will receive it on yearly basis for 3 years projects. Okay, so it will be the only income part of our analysis, and we will receive it 51,780 together with the net working capital in the final year, which is in the terminal concept. So a total of 71,780 will be part of our income. Okay, so if you have your financial calculator, you can calculate what we call the NPV now. Okay, net present value with these cash flows. Yeah, I'm not sure whether you've learned or you use financial calculators or not. I don't think. Sorry about that. So if you have financial calculators with you, right? You need to use the cash function. Okay, cash function. I'm not sure which model you have, but if you have Casio, Financial Consultant FC, either 100B or 200B version, you use the cash function, and if this person, if I'm not mistaken, the rate is 10%. Let's assume 10% first. Try 20%. So we leave at 20%. Then we have the cash editor. So the first year is a negative 110. Negative refers to outflows. Okay, we put a negative 110,000. Okay, missing zero actually, it's supposed to be 110,000. 110,000, 90,000. Second year, it's 51780. Or actually the first year. Then the second year is also 51780. And the third year, the terminal cash flow before the product or the project ends, it's 7178. So let's keep. Okay, so the question asks us to use 20%, and this is 30% interest. So once you use your financial calculator, you will get about this much. 10,647.6, or we can convert it into 10,648. So it's a positive. Okay, it's a positive result. Okay, net present value positive. So should we accept or reject the project? So remember, since our NPV is positive, you should accept. Okay, so you've learned this technique in capital budgeting in financial management, right? But in the financial management last time, I'm not sure whether you're in my class or not, but we use tables instead of calculators. Okay, because financial management is for everyone in the faculty. So I don't expect everybody to have financial calculators, right? But for you guys, you have to have financial calculators. So we will use financial calculators in our class. So we get 10,648 as our net present value if we solve. And if you want to find the IRR again in the financial calculators, you just scroll down just below the NPV, we have IRR. Press the solve button. Okay, for IRR, it will take quite a while to get the results. And here, the IRR is 25.8. Okay, 25.8. So in the exact is 25.7615, whatever, but we round up to 25.8. And again, if you want to look from the IRR should be higher than our the rate of return, required rate of return, 20%. So since IRR is above 20%, so again, based on IRR, we can conclude, yes, we should accept the project. Okay. So to accept the project, NPV must be positive. So kalau you compare between the two, it must be higher between the two for the project if you're comparing more than one. And for IRR, the result must be higher than required rate of return. Okay, so in this case, the 25% is obviously above the 20%. If you calculate your IRR and you get less than 20%, you get 70% or 60%, you have to reject the project if below required rate of return. But NPV and IRR somehow it's correlates to another. So if it's positive here, your IRR should be higher than required rate of return, and vice versa. If it's negative NPV, your IRR most of the time will be lower than the required rate of returns. Okay, so you can justify using NPV or IRR, depends on questions, and how you explain it is based on this. Okay, NPV positive or higher than the competitor, and the IRR returns must be higher than the required rate of returns. That's how we make decisions. Okay, this is one simple example, okay, of analyze the project. Remember, this is expectation. We think, tengok soalan ni, we think we can sell. Okay, maybe the word we think maybe not very accurate. Maybe they use a forecast they can sell so and so amount of products with a certain price like this one, and then the cost they have to have the cost, the fixed cost, and then the initial cost that they need to purchase the equipment, okay, the depreciation, the net working capital, so on. Okay. So why we do have to consider net working capital separately? Because in accounting, we record it separately as compared to the other costs. And usually when we talk about net working capital, okay, we will assume, remember, we will incur the net working capital during the initial stage, and we will recover this at the end, okay, at the end of our project, okay, during the terminal cash flows. Okay, depreciation. I've showed you earlier how to calculate the depreciation. The straight line method. However, sometimes depreciation expenses is considered as non-cash expenses, and you have to take into consideration the tax shield. Kita panggil dia tax shield, tax shield, which is we take the depreciation multiply with the tax rates. Okay, this is to calculate the depreciation tax shield. So we have two methods here, straight line and MACRS, MACRS, like I said earlier. Okay, but most of the time, I will use a simple straight line depreciation because first, because of the simplicity of the calculations, and second, this is the I lupa tadi the salvage value. The salvage value. This is the resale value tadi. Because in the CRS ni, we need to have the table to calculate, number one, and we need to know the asset class juga, because different asset class have different tables. So it's complicated in terms of not complicated lah, meaning I need to provide you a lot of information in order for you to calculate. Okay, in terms of the percentage, maknanya dia punya reductions is not appropriate ataupun it's not proportionate. Let's say it's 5 years period, it's not even every year, so dia focus on the mid-year. So initially will depreciate at lower rates, and then they will go up in the middle year, then it will reduce back. So that's why most of the time, if you're talking about questions, I will use a straight line or a simple calculations depreciation, whereby to find the depreciation, simply take the initial cost. Okay, we divide with the number of years. Okay, and when we talk about initial cost, it's not necessarily about the cost itself. This initial cost includes training, if there's training cost. You purchase a new machines, for example, and you have to send the staff for training, and the training is not part of the price. So the training cost must be included. Installation cost, if any, you purchase the machines and the supplier needs to install for you. So the installation cost will be part of your initial cost as well. Shipping costs, if any, if it's not part of the the actual cost, you have to include as well. So initial cost includes everything. So you will see some question they will separate kan, okay, the actual price berapa, and then add on training cost, add on installation, add on shipping, if any. Okay, so the whole thing will be part of the initial cost of the project or initial cost of the assets. Okay, and divide by number of years lah. Number of years ni will be given the question. 5 years, 7 years, 8 years, 10 years. Okay, and then you will get your annual depreciation. Okay, for a straight line, our depreciation will be constant every year because we divide evenly. We will divide it evenly. So for salvage value, okay, it might be included also. Remember the resale value will be part of our income during the terminal year. Yeah, after tax salvage will be included in terminal cash flow. Cash flow will be the final year's cash flow because we resell it, meaning we will get back some portion of the cost, similar like networking capital. Because networking capital will receive it in full, but for salvage, we will receive after tax, okay, after tax basis. So to get the book value, it's initial cost minus the accumulated depreciation for that particular year. So book value we can see year-on-year basis. So every year the book value will reduce. Okay, and to get the after-tax salvage, it will be two ways how to find it. Okay, you can use this one, salvage times 1 minus tax. If the book value equivalent to 0, okay, this is after the final year. Or you can use salvage minus tax. Okay, multiply with salvage minus book value. Okay. So again, this applicable uh, intermittent between year one and year the final year, but most of the time we will use this one. Okay, salvage one times 1 minus tax rates. This is tax rate line. Okay, so now it's 11:06. Let's take a quick short break. Short break quickly. Yeah. Let's take a short break. Before we move on with straight line depreciation and after tax salvage, and before we do a proper analysis on a certain project. Because so far kita baru introduce, uh, a simple analysis. Okay, we haven't do a proper analysis yet based on certain cases. Because like I said, we have a few cases that we will go through in terms of expansion, in terms of replacement. Okay, so far kita just assume kita nak purchase new assets and then that's it. Because sometimes we purchase this new equipment because we want to expand, or sometimes we purchase this new equipment to replace the old equipment. So there are, few things that you need to consider, right? Because when we talk about replacement, obviously when we replace, we have to sell. We assume we sell the old equipment and we will get some income kat situ. Right? So that's why we have after tax salvage here, because we will get some returns. Okay, but before we go further, let's take a short break. Like I said, I'll see you guys in a bit. Okay, let's restart here. When I look at this again, so I think there are some thing that you can do in the formula here. You need to find the after-tax salvage. Okay, after-tax salvage. Yeah, I split to salvage minus tax and then this one. So supposedly, if you want to add a bracket here, it might be much meaningful because to find the after-tax salvage, remember salvage value minus, right? When the bracket is actually more accurate lah as compared to salvage minus tax. Okay, then you multiply with salvage. So put a bracket here. So meaning the tax rates, we multiply with the difference between salvage value and the book value. Some depreciation will give our book value up until zero, meaning at the end of our product cycle, okay, at the end of the life of the products, will give us a book value of zero. Okay, that's why alternatively, this is or alternatively, you can use salvage times 1 minus tax because we assume the book value equals to zero. Because if you put here zero, so salvage minus zero meaning is equivalent to salvage. Okay, so salvage minus tax times salvage is basically can be simplified by using this formula. Okay, but this formula only applicable if its book value equals to zero. And as I mentioned before, to find book values, okay, you need to take initial costs, okay, minus accumulated cash flow. You want to find the book value at the end of our life cycle of the product, the useful life of the product. So some cases, if you use straight line, no issues. Straight line, obviously, the book value will be zero at the end because we depreciate evenly every year. So at the end of the life cycle or the useful life of the product, it will be zero. But for if we use other types of depreciation style, okay, our book value might not be zero. So I'll show you afterwards the example. Okay, just remember, after tax salvage will be used in the cash flow. Okay, so this is an example of how we try to find depreciation and also the after tax salvage. And this is based on straight line method. Okay, you purchase equipment for 90,000. Okay, this is a cost 90,000, but with additional 10,000 ringgit to have it delivered and installed. So this is what I said just now. The total cost will be the combination of this 90,000 plus add-on costs, including deliveries and installation. So a combine of these two will be total cost is 100,000. Okay, and based on past information, you believe that you can sell the equipment for 70,000. So this 70,000, this is what we call as salvage value. Okay. Remember, salvage value is the resale value, the possible resale value of our products. Okay, and it will last for 5 years. So the useful life is 5 years. The tax rate is 40%, and under straight line depreciation, what is the depreciation for each year, and what will be the after tax salvage in year number 5. So depreciation is 100,000 based on the total cost. Okay, 100,000 total cost. We divide with 5 years. We get our annual depreciation of 20,000. So meaning we have 5 years here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So initially it will be 100,000. This is the book value. Then it will reduce to 80, 60, 40 until zero lah. Until zero. 1,000 is zero. Okay, it will be reduced to year 5 nanti dia akan jadi zero. Okay, that's why book value in year 5 after reducing 5 years of 20,000, it will give us a value of zero. So that's why in order to find the after-tax salvage, it will be after salvage values, which is 70,000, minus, okay, right, tax is 40%, times salvage, which is 70,000 minus zero. Then we get 10,200 ringgit. Or, if you remember, you can use salvage value 17,000 times 1 minus tax rate. We get 10,200 as well. So this is also can be used. This formula can be used as well. If the book value is equals to 0 only. If it's not 0, you have to use the full formula just like this. Okay, so that's the after-tax salvage, 10,200. And this will be recovered in terminal cash flows. And depreciation will be included in our calculation of OCF as well. Okay. And this is straight line method. And I want to share with you the MACRS or Macros depreciation and the after-tax salvage as well. So this is the very exact question. Okay. Now the cost is 100,000 with the 10,000. Installation and delivery, and it's also 17,000. But now the what we call the the useful life is for 6 years. Okay, for 6 years. The tax rate is still 40%, and the question asks us to find depreciation every year, and the after-tax salvage. Okay, after 6 years, and we have two different macros within standard. We have 3-year macros and 7-year macros. That's why, like I said, the MACRS or macros standard is slightly tricky or slightly longer to calculate because we have different standards, whether 3 years, 7 years, and everything here based on asset class. And obviously, I have to provide you with the table. Okay, but for this, I already calculated for you. This is based on 3 years. Okay, 3 years macros. The percentage is based on the table. Okay, when we want to calculate the depreciation, we have to use the percentage based on the table. So for this, they give you for 3 years, the 33.33% for the first year, 44, 14, and also on the 4th year. Right. So since we have 6 years of useful life, okay, first of all, you will notice that the depreciation will be different every year. Unlike straight line will be standard, right? Standard every year. But for this, it will be different. So to find the depreciation, you need to multiply the percentage direct with the total cost. The total cost was 110. How I get this 110? 100,000 is the cost of equipment, and additional 10,000 for delivery and installation. So a total of 110,000, which simply multiply with 33.33%. You get this 36,663 depreciation for year 1. Okay, year 1. Then for year 2 is 44.45%, multiply directly with the total cost. And then respectively, we multiply for the cost. And based on this, even though the question asks us to find until year 6, so it will be depreciated until 0 after year 4. So meaning year 5 and year 6 we cannot have because it's a 3-year macros, right? So at the end of year 6, it will be 0 rise. You don't have values anymore. The book value will be equals to 0. We don't have. Basically, the product will not have no book value. Okay, but we can sell it still at 70,000. Okay, so I showed you using the full formula is 0.4, 40% times 17,000 minus 0 based on our book value year 6 on top here. So again, we will have 10,200 ringgit after tax salvage, but the annual depreciation will be different every year. This is based on 3 year. Okay, 3 year macros. All right. So if it based on 6 years, 7 years macros. Okay. Right. Based on 7 years macros, the percentage is different. See on the left, it will be different. Right. And again, how to calculate? Similar like before, you just multiply the cost with the percentage to get respective depreciations. And the question asks us to find after year 6. So we find 6 years because technically we have 7 years. So we have another percentage in year 7 actually. But since our end will be on the year 6, Okay, after deducting all the depreciation, the total cost, we still have a balance of 14,729. So it's not zero rise. Okay, the book value is not zero rise. So here, if you substitute in the information, okay, 70,000 minus 40% times 70,000 minus 14,729, because we still have values. The book value is 14,000. Okay, so our after tax salvage would be different, much higher at 16,091. Okay. So for this matter, we cannot use the alternative version because the book value is not equivalent to zero. We have to use this full formula in order to get the after-tax salvage value. Okay, so this is how we calculate depreciation and after-tax salvage value based on macros. Okay, so we have either 3 years or either 7 years. It's based on question. We cannot decide by ourselves, meaning it depends on question number one, and obviously the 3 years or 7 years is actually based on asset class. Okay, but this is just illustration. We just calculate based on 3 and 7 years. Right? But just to let you know, most of the time, we will use this one. We will use the simple one. Okay, to use the find the depreciation and also the after-tax salvage value. Okay, so this is our starting point. Okay, starting point, we have for ample time to calculate the first types of project, which is based on expansion. Okay, expansion, so meaning they invest with the expectation to increase the capacity of the current facility. So example, Newco wants to add its production capacity. Okay, they want to increase its production capacity, and they want to invest in new machine, which is machine B. Okay, machine B. And this machine B costs 2,000 ringgit. Okay, 2,000 ringgit. And shipping and installation of 500 and 500 ringgit. Installation, shipping and installation, 500 ringgit. And 300 ringgit cost for networking capital. Okay, networking capital. Okay, I repeat, 2,000 ringgit is the cost itself. Shipping and installation, additional 500 ringgit. And then they have networking capital, 300 ringgit. The machine lasts for 5 years. Okay, with a market value of 800. So this is salvage value. Okay, the life day useful life day 5 years. Capital 300, 500 together with 2,000 will be the total cost. Total cost would be 2,005. Okay, you can see total cost 2,005, 300 ringgit, networking capital, 5 years with the 800 salvage value. With respect to cash flows, Newco expects the new machine to generate additional 1,500 revenue. So this will be the income, 1,005. So this is relevant cash flow because this is incremental. Okay, all of these in fact are incremental, semua masuk dalam company cost. The cost of 200 ringgit. So this is the cost or the fixed cost that they have. We will assume the Newco has a tax rate of 40%. Okay, this is the tax rate, 40%. The maximum payback period is 5 years, similar like the useful life of the machine is 5 years as well. So calculate the initial outlay. Okay, remember this is IO, initial outlay. The OCF of the cash flows, and the terminal cash flow. Terminal, as I said, is the final year. So in this case, since this is 5 years project, so terminal cash flow will be cash flow in year number 5. Right, so IO to year 0, which is when they purchase the machine. So operating cash flow will start in year 1 until year 5. But year 5 will be special because that will be the terminal whereby we will receive the networking capital will be received in terminal cash flow. The salvage value after tax will be received in terminal cash flow as well. And the required rate of return is 40%. Okay, so to summarize what you need to do, I include the steps. Okay, remember we have 3 steps basically. First is to identify the initial outlay, which is the cost. Ada total cost of 2,500 ringgit. And then we have net working capital costs as well, right? And then the operating cash flow, we need to identify based on, if you remember, there are two ways, either to use EBIT minus tax, okay, EBIT minus tax plus depreciation, or you can use net income plus depreciation if net income is given, but in this case, net income is not given. So therefore, we need to use EBIT, okay, EBIT minus, EBIT minus tax plus depreciation. And then, what else? And for terminal cash flow, it will be the OCF together with the salvage value after tax and also the returns of net working capital. So this is the summary lah, what you need to do. The IO, as I mentioned, is fixed capital expenditure. Okay, so if I note here, the fixed capital expenditure based on the earlier parts would be 2,000 plus 500 ringgit. So I put here 2,000 plus 500. Okay, this is the total cost or total fixed capital expenditure with a net working capital of 300. Okay, 300 ringgit is the net working capital. So a total of 2,800 ringgit will be our initial outlay. Okay, our initial outlay will be 2,800 ringgit. Okay, to calculate OCF, number two, step number two, to calculate the operating cash flows is to find earning before interest and taxes times 1 minus tax plus depreciation. Okay. I don't have to explain again how to get evidence, but if you know your accounts, right, your revenues, you minus the costs, okay, both costs, the fixed and variable costs, will give you earning before interest and taxes. So earning before interest and taxes in this case would be, the income revenues 1,005 minus with cost of 200 ringgit. Okay, because that's the only cost they have, 1,005 minus 200. So your EBIT will be 1,005 minus 200. That will be your earning before interest and taxes. Okay, and your tax rate is 40%. Okay, and your depreciation would be percent taxes. Okay, but forget besides this, we need to add, we have to minus depreciation as well. Okay. Yeah, we have revenues minus COGS, you get gross profit minus fixed costs minus depreciation as well. Then baru dapat EBIT. Okay, so to get EBIT, basically you need to minus the cost, two costs, and minus depreciation. So we need to find the depreciation. So depreciation based on straight line would be the cost would be 2,500, and it will last for 5 years. So the annual depreciation is 500. 500. So we need to include together with the installation, the total 500 ni pun will be part of our cost. Divide with 5 years useful life. 500 ringgit is depreciation. So kat sini, you're supposed to minus 500 as well. Okay, 1,005 minus cost, minus depreciation, times 1 minus tax, and we add back with 500 ringgit depreciation. So 800 times 0.6 plus 500. So a total of 980 ringgit. This would be our OCF. So every year they will generate 980 ringgit. Okay. 980. So this would be our OCF. Okay, and to calculate the terminal cash flows, okay, terminal cash flows, we need to identify the salvage value. So after tax, salvage value would be the salvage value, which is this one, value 800 ringgit. Okay, times with minus tax, because the book value will be zero when we use straight line. Okay, we use straight line, automatically our book value will be zero at year end. So you don't have to prove it by add everything and then minus with the cash flow. You just use 1 minus tax rate of 0.4. So 480. So the after tax salvage value will be 480. OCF is 980. And net capital is 300. So 480 plus 980 plus 300. So our terminal cash flow will give us 1760. Okay, so if you put in, if you want to put this, okay, you have 5 days, 5. This is your cash flow. So year 0 will be your IO. This is for IO, this is your total outflow. So you put a negative 2,800 because negative here represent outflow with war. And your OCF will be starting from year 1, which is 980. Fixed 980 every year, except during the terminal year, because this 980 is part of it, but we have salvage value and net working capital. So a total of 1760. This is the table lah, basically. Okay, your cash flows. Okay, negative or outflow of 2008 in terminal, in initial outlay, and then every year you receive 980 OCF, and in year 5, the terminal cash flow, you receive the OCF together with salvage and net working capital with the total of 1760. And once you have this information, what you need to do next is to find, because the question asks us to determine, basically determine. So in determining whether is it worth it or not, find NPV, you can find IRR as well together. Okay. Again, use your financial calculators. Use the cash function, and the interest rate is 14%. For this question, the required rate of return is 14%. Okay, 14%. So the I is 14%. And for the cash flow, so the initial outlay would be negative 2,800. For our OCF is 980 every year. And during 5th year, the terminal cash flow it will be 1760. So you will have 6 years lah. It's not 6 years, you have 6 data needs to be incorporated. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. You have 6 data. Right? And you escape and you solve your MPV. So this will give you MPV of 970. 70 ringgit. Okay, and based on IRR, so IRR will give you 6.5%. So what we can conclude here, okay, based on MPV, we should accept this project because it shows a positive net present value. It's 970 ringgit. So we should accept the project. That's number 1 if it's based on MPV, but if it's based on IRR, you can say You should accept the project because the internal rate of return of 26.5% is higher than the required rate of return of 14%. Okay, so both of these show us to accept the project ataupun in this case buy the machine. Okay, so this is first example based on expansion. Okay, based on expansion projects. Questions. Okay, so this is the step that you need to know. Okay, the IO must be based on the fixed cost together with net working capital. Remember, during the initial outlay, the net working capital will be spent. Then second step, calculate the operating cash flows, okay, based on this formula. Or if the question give you the net income straight away, then you just add with the net depreciation. But since the question doesn't specify the net income, we need to identify the earning before interest and taxes based on the income, the revenues. Deduct all the costs and minus the depreciation as well. All right, in order to get EBIT, and then multiply with 1 minus tax. The tax rate is 40%. Then we add back with the depreciation 500 ringgit. Okay, that's our OCF, and this OCF will be, will be gains, or you will receive it every year since year 1 until the 5th year, and then except for the terminal cash flow year number 5, you will receive it together with salvage value after tax. And the net working capital that you spend in the initial outlay, you will recover it in the terminal cash flow. Okay, you spend here, you receive it back here. Okay, so for this question, the terminal cash flow is 1760. And once you have all the information, you can put it here like this in the table, just like what you have in capital budgeting. Okay, remember the IO must be, you don't forget to put a negative sign here. It doesn't mean it's a negative spend, but it just to indicate that it is an outflow. Okay, an outflow. Then 980 of OCF every year, and 1760 will be at the terminal cash flow. Then calculate lah with your financial calculators based on this question 14% interest. So you will have NPV and internal rate of return to justify your decision whether to accept the project or to purchase the machines or not. Okay, ada banyak lagi kita ada cost cutting, we have replacement yang quite complicated sikit lah. So I think I'll stop here for today. Right? We've gone through, as a recap now, the cash flows, possible cash flows. Some might be incremental, some might not be. Meaning some incremental, some non-incremental. So what we will include in our analysis will be just incremental, okay, which simply means cost that affects the actual project or our decisions in purchasing new assets. And then we learned about the depreciation. Here we have two types, straight line and macros. But as I mentioned, most of the time we will use straight line for easier calculations. But in the exercises, maybe some of them we might have to use macros as well. Straight line quite easy to calculate because we divide evenly every year, so your depreciation will be the same. So that's why I prefer to use straight line for easier calculations. In fact, in real life, most of the time we will use straight line depreciation. In when you work later on, maybe I don't know, in certain firms whereby you involve in projects, you will encounter this again. Use straight line depreciation. And on top of that, we can calculate the after-tax salvage because some of the equipment, especially equipment, if we talk about project, sometimes difficult to quantify. But for equipment, Okay. The equipment can be salvaged at the end with a certain price, certain values, and to differentiate, we have a book value. Book value meaning is the accounting side of it lah. On paper, in the fifth year, they have no value, but somehow you can sell it as a second-hand values, even though on paper there's no value anymore, right? If we use straight line, even if we plan to use 5 years, so meaning after 5 years, it will be zero, right? And then we can calculate that salvage. And yeah, in the first uh, types of projects that you encounter is expansion. Yeah, expansion. So later we will explore the cost cutting and also the replacement. Okay, cost cutting is not that difficult, so but I will keep it for next meeting because it's quite similar like our expansion projects, but the replacement is might be tricky because it involves two products or two machines or two machines, and you need to sell the assumption that you sell your old machines and it will give you some incremental cash flows, and we have to include together with the new machines expectations of income, and we blend together, and at the end again we still calculate the NPV or IRR to determine whether is it uh, profitable or is it worth it to replace or not. If it's not, not worth it, then we stick with the original machine, the old machines, or else we have to find other machines with different costs, cheaper costs maybe, with a potentially higher income. Okay, so I'll stop here. Right, kalau tak memang akan cakap ni sampai pukul 2 ni. So I'll stop here for today. So I'll continue with the placement, cost cutting and other that's in the future. Tak ada. Okay, I akan check balik lah. I re-upload. Okay, I will re-upload this. Thank you for the notice. I tak perasan maybe the PDF version was the old formats. This one I dah pakai few years lah. Maybe I still use the last one. But anyway, thank you. Nanti I will re-upload. Any other matters? Okay, but before I terlupa lah, we are approaching week 6, 7 ni. So as you all know, week 6 and 7 would be the time for us to do our midterm. So I would like to see lah, the potential. Your midterm break bila kan? Break is another 2 weeks if I'm not mistaken. Week 7, week of 16. But we have Deepavali on the 14th. So the question is, kalau before Deepavali, maknanya next week je ni. So I assume we do it after Deepavali, obviously, during the midterm break ni. So you want to do it on the 17th, okay, on the 17th, or during the weekend. Huh? Yeah, 16th to break. So can we do it during the break? Either you want to do it during the weekdays or you want to do it during the weekend of that particular break lah. 17 Okay. Agree 17. So tak mesti 17, it can be 18 juga if you want. But I don't have class with 17. Boleh lah 17. Alright, so our our midterm break will be on the 17th of November, and it will covers topic 1 and 2 or 1. Until I decide, maximum will be up until topic 2 lah. Or it can be topic 2 only, right? Or part of topic 1. I'm not sure yet. Because topic 1 we've done the quiz, kan? Right? Or maybe I can incorporate, because the quiz only covers short-term financing, kan? I can incorporate the ones for inventory together with this topic number 2 as well. So nanti I'll let you know which topics it will cover, but it will be up until topic 2 only. Okay, so yeah, thank you very much. So I'll see you guys next week with the
Thank you, sir.
continuation. Yeah, with the continuation of this topic number 2.
Thank you, sir.
Right, thank you. Welcome. Okay, you too.